Hi, I'm Michelle Somberfield, and it is Saturday, March, 18th, 2023, and I just thought I would make a video, and I don't know where this is going to go. It might just be a pointless ramble, but I guess I've got some things on my mind. Well, I was raised really Catholic, believing in God, and I still believe in God or a higher power, but I still call him God, and I still think of him as a him. And I know reincarnation's real because I started having past life memories when I was 19 and in college. And I think what I really am kind of sitting in, the feeling I'm kind of sitting in right now, is this weird feeling of sadness and acknowledgement and some regrets and just some realizations. And what I mean by that is, I had a good friend for, 13 to 15 years. I'm not sure how long. And I met her online. I'll call her Alice. Well, that's her name. She liked to go by Susan sometimes, which is her middle name, but I'll call her by her real name. And Alice was a few years older than me and always lived in another state. We never lived close. Even when she moved from one state that was far away from me to another state that was far away from me. And so in all these years, a decade and a half, we never met in person. And we kept in touch online. We sent back and forth lots of emails. We started IMing a lot. We would mail each other things at birthdays and Christmas. She had seen my videos. She made me a video once where she was playing with one of her dogs. We just had a good friendship online. Now, I know some people have told me that online friendships aren't real. Those aren't real people. And I know there's a lot of scammers in the world, a lot of catfishers in the world, but there are some real people online, people you really can become friends with. And I've been friends long term with several people, and the longest, or about the longest, was with her. And Alice died on March 7th, and I knew she had been ill with a couple different things. At the time I met her, she had MS, but she was managing it. She took medicine and did whatever she had to, went to the doctor. She was managing it, and she wasn't the worst case scenario. I mean, she wasn't in a wheelchair, and she could do things. She could take her dogs for a walk, and she got around, and she went places with her husband, and she entertained visitors or traveled occasionally to see other people. But she had MS, so she lived with a certain amount of pain and uncertainty. And she also had back problems. And I'm not really quite sure what those are from, but I know I've had back issues before where sometimes they're really painful. And at times she would be in a lot of pain, especially recently. And then she told me sometime last year that she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I have to admit, I was kind of really in denial. I would ask her how she was doing, and she would tell me about chemo, but she would say, I did this or that, and, it didn't hurt. Or it was really okay because when I went to chemo, I was able to watch a movie while I was getting things done, and it wasn't so bad. Or she would just say, well, guess what? There was a grant, and we're able to get some medicine for nothing, but typically it's really expensive. And so she was always looking on the positive side of things, even though I know she had a lot of doctor's appointments, and at some time didn't have energy, or she had a lot of pain at times. There were some times she said, things were being managed, and other times it was really hard. Toward the end, she did say that she felt like her life was really crummy in that she didn't feel well, but she still kept kind of insinuating she thought things were okay. And she said that some of her relatives were starting to visit her last fall, and she kind of made the comment, well, I think they think things are a lot worse than it is. And I have to admit, looking back on things, was in denial. In all those years that Alice and I were friends, I called her one time. She never called me, but I did call her one time when she gave me her phone number. And we had a good talk, but we kept in touch so much online through emails and IMs and exchanging photos and sending each other gifts for holidays and this and that. It never really felt like anything was missing. I used to sometimes think, well, what if someday I could meet her somehow? But I never really thought, well, we must talk on the phone in order to be close friends or anything. I just felt like we were good friends. And I didn't realize how bad things were getting, and then all of a sudden, one of her sisters IM'd me, and then her husband IM'd me on the same day, and they both told me she was in the hospital, and they would keep me posted, but they said she wanted me to know that she was in the hospital. And so I asked her sister for Alice's phone number, and she said, well, she can't really talk very long because she's getting oxygen now because of her can't breathe, lung cancer. And she said, but here's her phone number. Maybe you'll get her, before visitors or someone comes into the room. And I called, and I got a voicemail, or a recording, I should say. And in that moment I thought, what do I do? I'm not the most if I'm setting up an appointment or doing something for work, I know what to say, but it's like, what do you say? You want to be hopeful. You want to tell someone they mean a lot to you. You don't want to say anything to make them more down, because for all you know, maybe they'll pull through. You don't want to be stupid and unrealistic. You want them to know that you realize there's seriousness going on now. It's serious. So I left a long rambling phone message. I don't know how long it was, but I said a bunch of stuff. And I told her I loved her and that she was special and that our friendship mattered. I can't remember the exact words, but I did tell her she was special and I love her. And I told her I was praying for her. And I said, we discussed reincarnation many times. I actually found out that she believed in reincarnation after I had published my book. And then she said, well, I have to admit I believe in reincarnation. And I didn't tell you, and I don't normally tell people because I'm afraid they'll think I'm crazy. And then I realized in all those years we had talked, I don't even know if I mentioned that I believed in reincarnation. Because I too was used to people, a lot of people thinking that was crazy or just, not something they believed in. And so I didn't even mention it to her in many, many years that we knew each other. But she then told me she felt she had a few past life memories. And she said, it's nothing extensive, but it's enough that I know it's real. And I said, well, we live far away, but we get along really well. Why don't we know each other in a future life? Why don't we promise we're going to be sisters or college friends or something in another lifetime? And I can't remember what she said at the time I said that, because we were, half serious, half joking around, But when I left her a phone message when she was in the hospital and having a hard time breathing, I mentioned that again. And I was in touch with her sister. And then I got the news from her husband that she died. And it's really strange, you know. I knew she was a friend. But now that she's gone, I realize I just have this very profound feeling. I can't even explain it, but her husband then wrote to me, I don't know when it was, a day or two later, something like that. And he said, he said that she had written something on a notepad when she was in the ICU. And it said, "Michie, I love you. See you in college next time. Love, Alice." And you know, when something like that happens, you know, I think it's normal to reevaluate every little thing, you know, and think about all the things you talked about, and to realize this person who's in your life on a regular basis just isn't going to be anymore, and they still live on in your heart. And Lord knows we exchanged a lot of things with each other. We were both kind of shopaholics, and we talked about that a lot in the end. And we talked about how we would acquire a lot of things, but we'd also have to get rid of a lot of things to make room for new things. But I still have a few of the things that she gave me over the years. I don't have everything. Now I'm kind of thinking, gee, I wish I would have kept this. I wish I would have kept that. It would have reminded me of Alice, you know, and she had the best taste, and she would make up really big care packages. My mom makes really great care packages too. But, you know, I mean, Alice loved to shop, and she would get things very specific for people who, you know, things she knew you really liked. Like, I know she and I both really like foxes. We're both really into foxes, and but she would send me a lot of cat stuff because she knew I had cats, and there are just different things that we liked. And then I thought to myself, why didn't I ever call her again? I only ever called her once. Granted, she never called me either, but and all that time we had this online, you know, friendship, and I never called her again. And all of a sudden I thought, God, I wish I would have called her. I think I was just in denial. I really didn't think that, I don't know. It's stupid. She's in her early 70s. I'm in my late 50s. You know that nobody has time forever, and a lot of times I don't even want to be in this lifetime, quite frankly. I'm ready for the next, I tell myself. I thought, why didn't I call her? And I had another friend who went by the name Val. That was the name she gave herself, not her real name, that she was born with. But Val was someone I knew during my 30s, and she was in Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And she had a really quirky personality. Sometimes she would lie about stuff a lot to try to embellish things to make herself sound really glamorous and something. Especially if she was going to meet a guy or trying to get a date, she would say things that weren't true in order to seem like a real catch. And she would just exaggerate things, and she was very dramatic about stuff. Excuse me. And she was a real character. I mean, she would tell me about this guy and that guy she liked or got involved with, and we would go shopping, and she was always dieting, and she was funny, fun, quirky, exasperating, frustrating sometimes. She would do strange things that would put me in odd positions. Like she would think that guys liked me more than her, and a lot of them did, unfortunately. But when we would hang out together, if she liked a guy, she would tell him that I had a thing for him, even if I didn't. Like if I were to go do something when I wasn't looking, she would tell him that, and then he would start pursuing me. And I realized she was doing this, and I'd say, why are you doing this? And she would say, because guys like you, not me, so I want to live vicariously through you. You can tell me what this guy's like if you go out with him. And there's a lot of sadness in that. Sadness that she felt she had to do that to, somehow live through someone else other than having the experiences she wanted. And also it was aggravating to me because it put me in a really uncomfortable position. But so anyway, when I moved to Indiana with my boyfriend, occasionally I'd go back home to visit my parents in Pennsylvania, and I would talk to my friend Val. And we would get together, and the last time we were at a party, she did something I thought was very rude to me, and she basically was my ride to the party that she insisted we go to, and then she didn't want to give me a ride home because she decided she was too tired to drive back across town. And I needed to get back home, and so she was like, just have one of the guys at the party take you home. You won't have any problems. Thankfully, a lady who was at the party saw what was going on, and she gave me a ride home. And I never met her before. She was very nice, and she just volunteered. So I had a conversation with my friend Val a few weeks later on the phone. And she told me a bunch of stuff going on in her life, and she said, I'm really sorry I did that, and I never felt the same way again, quite frankly. A couple years ago, I went back to Pennsylvania to visit my parents, and we were going through a big store. And then finally, after walking around for a while, we decided to go to the little cafe that was in the store and get something to eat. And I saw my friend Val. Now, my friend Val, the last time she saw me, my hair was either dark brown or red. I don't remember which. And it was much shorter. And I wasn't wearing glasses. And I was a little thinner. So I might have looked significantly different. I don't know. But Val didn't seem to notice me. I don't know if she just didn't look over my direction. The cafe area was a little bit big. And she was kind of distracted because she kept talking to some guy. And I didn't know if she just didn't recognize me or if she just didn't see me or what. But she was talking to this guy, and it looked like she was wheeling and dealing. And I was kind of used to her trying to get dates, and wheel and deal and be flirtatious with guys. And I was watching her. And part of me wanted to go over and talk to her, but another part of me thought, one of two things will happen. Either she will Shanghai my visit with my parents, and then I won't get to sit down with my parents and visit. And I didn't see my parents that much, because I lived out of state. So I didn't really want something to majorly interrupt my visit with my parents. And I also was kind of thinking, well, if I go say hi to her, what if the guy likes me more than her? Because she always said guys liked me more than her. And I thought, well, I don't want to interrupt this date type thing. It gave me the impression it was like maybe she had met the guy, but maybe it was one of her potential dates who she was originally contacting online type of things, because she'd always tell me about stuff like that. So I didn't want to interrupt that. So I didn't say anything to her, and she ended up leaving, and the guy ended up leaving, and then my parents and I ate, and we left. And it was a couple months later, one of her friends saw me on her Facebook as one of her friends and contacted me and said, "How do you know Val?" And I told her, and she said, "Well, Val just keeled over with a heart attack. She died." And I thought, my God, why didn't I go over and talk to Val? And another part of me thought, well, she probably would have been not happy if the guy did indeed talk to me. But why didn't I talk to Val? I would have been the last time to get to see her. And she was, a fairly good friend of mine for a few years during my mid-30s. Maybe even 5 years. Might have been 5 years. Something like that. And then, I was around her a little bit during my 40s because I would see her when I would go back to visit my parents in Pennsylvania after I moved to Indiana with my boyfriend. So I think that what I just want to say is that life is made up of a lot of different decisions. And I know that if you believe in reincarnation, it's really easy to get into the mindset of, oh, well, this life isn't so great, or I've gone through a lot of hardships, or I don't like the way I came back. I wish I was different. I wish I had different talent. I wish I had different, opportunities. Some people wish they had different families, whatever it is, And it's really easy to say, I don't want to come back ever again because I don't like being, incarnated. Or I better come back different the next time around. And what I would really say is life is made up of a lot of different day by day by day by day decisions. And I think there were so many times I should have done something different, and whatever that would be, And it could have been calling a friend or crossing a room to say hi to a friend, or not buying so many things because life is not about things. Even though they may give you a temporary thrill, sometimes it's good to have money in the bank, so if there's an emergency or something more important, you have something to rely on. And I think it's interesting thinking about my friend who said, hey, let's be college friends in a future lifetime. I think that's really cool. But at the same time, as much as it's easy to look at us as a soul who lives many lifetimes, therefore no lifetime is the only lifetime, you can do things over again, you get a new fresh start when you come back, all of that stuff. There's still something very specific and personal about every lifetime you're in. And probably every lifetime you're in, whatever strengths you hone or whatever good you do, in some way could influence, perhaps, I'm guessing, your abilities in a future lifetime. Maybe you're allowed to come back with more of something in a future lifetime if you do this, this, and that during this lifetime. So even though reincarnation is kind of inspirational, I guess you could say, knowing that you get to come back again, you still want to do the right things during your current life. What you're doing now still matters. And I don't want to go into future lifetimes thinking I need to do do-overs with people because I screwed things up this lifetime. So what I ended up doing was that I called my mom and I talked to my mom, had a really long conversation with her 2 nights ago. And then last night I contacted a childhood friend who I had been in touch with over email, and then we lost touch for like a year and a half. A lot of it was because I was initiating a lot of things, and she always seemed happy to talk to me and would write me lots of long stuff, but I think some people are just better at maybe initiating conversations or whatever than other people. And I emailed her, I should say. And then she said she wanted my phone number and she would call me, but she called me at a time I was working. And then I called her back and said, I'll call you when I can. And anyway, the point is, losing my friend Alice recently made me realize that there's no time like the present, and don't put off calling people you care about. If you really want them to know how you feel about them, or you really want to pick up a friendship, have the courage or make the time or whatever it is and contact the people you want to keep in contact with and the people you cherish. Don't put it off. None of us knows how much time we've got. And the fact of the matter is, somebody could have a fatal disease and you still might die in a car crash before they do. You never know who's going to go first, but don't put off making relationships better or reuniting with somebody you care about. I think that's really the big takeaway for me here, is that when I left that rambling message for Alice on the phone, I didn't know if she would end up leaving the hospital or not. I didn't know if she would end up being okay or not. And her sister told me that that phone message meant a lot to her. And then when Alice's husband relayed the message that Alice had written something for me on a notepad while she was in the hospital, that meant a lot to me. It's very touching. And it just made me what I ended up doing was going on her Facebook page and posting a few things, kind of like, I don't want to say a tribute, sort of, but kind of, a tribute to her. Knowing the people who were her friends would probably see that in their Facebook feed. And then I also went to the site where, you can leave a message or a memory or a picture or something for someone who's just died. And I put something there. I felt that was really important to do. I think it's important to honor people, but it's even more important to reach out to them and be kind to them and expressive to them when everyone's still alive. I can laugh, a nervous laugh, but it's true. And so I would just say that I would encourage everybody to reach out to somebody, if you know that you would regret it if you never saw them again and didn't say or do something for them or with them that you would like to, you really should reach out. And I know somebody, my boyfriend actually, he used to say things to me like, well, why do you have so many friends who celebrate your birthday? Or, I wish people would come over to the house, or whatever. And I would say, well, do you ever invite people over to the house? Well, I'd say you can't always wait for other people to invite you over to the house. Sometimes you have to initiate. Sometimes you have to be the host. Sometimes you can be the one. Or I'd say, well, I have people that give me gifts at my birthday, but I do the same for them. Do you give anybody anything? No. The neighbor guy, really nice guy. My boyfriend and I moved to the house we're in now about 9 months ago. And we have really nice neighbors, and they're really talkative during the summer months when we would all be out in our yard. And we have this fence in between our yards, but you can see through and over the fence. And the neighbor guy gave my boyfriend a beer one day when it was a really hot summer day. So it was a day or two later, and my boyfriend said, well, have you seen the neighbor guy outside in his yard today at all? And I said, no. Why? And he said, oh, I could just use another beer. And so I bought some beer the next time I went to the store. And he said, why'd you buy beer? I said, you can offer him a beer when he's out in the yard. You do not always have to wait for somebody else to do something for you. If you want that friendship or you want that thing, you can offer it as well. So, I guess I'm just rambling, but I guess I would just say that if you value your relationships, whatever the relationship is, don't let important things go unsaid. Don't always wait for the other person to initiate everything. And forgive yourself when you think you've fallen short, because it's so easy to get caught up in your own, I don't know, busyness and negativity in your life. You know, I know people, and I'm guilty of it too, who will say, well, there's nothing exciting going on in my life. Nobody wants to hear about me. Or, you know, I don't feel good about myself. I'm depressed. And I find that one of the things that can help you through depression is reaching out and talking about people and having friendships that mean something. And I'm sure in some way, probably my friend Alice, like keeping in touch with me and other people she was friends with, it probably helped her during the times she did have her MS and her back problems and her lung issues. It probably helped her, and maybe conversations gave her, you know, something else to focus on. She could talk to someone about their things and or, you know, enjoy the friendship, or and not just sleep, or not just be sad. It's okay, you know, if you're sad, you're sad. She did tell me one day she was in so much pain, I think it was because of her back, that she just felt like sobbing. And that's okay too, but I'm just saying there's a lot of power in reaching out to people and finding out what you have in common, or finding out something exciting about them that is different than what you experience. But it's very sad if you get to that point where you know you will never again be able to express to someone that they're important to you, and to look back and think, God, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done that. Hopefully, you know, my friendship, you know, hopefully what I did was enough, but I literally looked at all my I ams, and with her that we had, I don't have the emails. I had to clean out a lot of my emails, you know, because I was losing memory, and we were in touch for like 13 to 15 years. So, I mean, I don't have any of the email exchanges we ever had, but I have the IMs. And I found myself looking at them and thinking, you know, was I enough of a friend? Was I good enough of a friend? And Alice's husband actually wrote to me and said, you know, she loved you and really enjoyed your friendship over the years. But in my mind, I felt like I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd been a better friend. So, my message is, I know reincarnation's for real. And I know that it's very easy to get busy in life, or make up excuses not to contact someone, or to be afraid to contact someone, or to be ticked off because you're always the one that has to initiate everything, or whatever. I mean, whatever. Don't put off letting people know you care about them if you do, because you don't know how long that person will be around. And it's great to think you're going to meet someone in a future lifetime again, but I think it's even better, it feels better if you feel that you really have done what you wanted to during your current lifetime, that you haven't dropped the ball and let things slide and made up too many excuses, because sometimes there is no tomorrow. So that's just what I want to say. And I think because Alice was so good at being such a good friend, You know, I wish that kind of kind, interesting, fun friendship for everybody. But in order to have a good friendship, you have to be a good friend yourself. Anyway, that's the end of that. It's just really on my mind, you know. I feel really, really bad. And I'm sure she didn't really want to leave the people she loved, because she told me all the time how happy she was, you know, that she had relationships with her sister and that she was always in touch with most of her grandkids. And she said her husband was being so great to her, especially during the time she was sick. And I know she had just gotten a couple puppies a year or so ago, and she loved them very much. And I'm sure, you know, she's probably always going to be a concerned mother as far as her 2 kids go. And I'm sure she didn't want to leave, you know. So I'm glad I at least got the chance to leave a phone message for her, even though I didn't get to talk to her. So keep in touch with people you care about.